Alrighty, that wraps that up, and then let's go to serialized files. Okay, welcome everybody. That was just a somewhat of a quick tutorial session with one of my clients for tutoring, and yeah. But besides that, we're moving into understanding serialized files within Java, and what this is practically understanding the pros and cons of serialization and versus sequential text files. So like sequential files are files that we manipulate, and what they store are strings. So like with strings, whenever we open the file, it's easier to read and understand the data that's being stored, and we usually like use delimiters to give the file structure, because by default sequential files don't have structure to them. We as the developers are the ones that are going to structure it. So as you look here, where say we are also able to structure all the records we had within our text files using a delimiter such as the hash between the strings. So for example, my name hash, surname Mahana. So it just splits the string whenever we're reading from the file or writing to the file. We'd set up our string to look something like this. And then since we store all the strings within the file, all the text is readable. So now serializable files are files that are converted into a byte stream format. And I'll get into that just now. But I wrote here, we are now able to read or write files that contain entire objects from the file. This is done through the process of serialization. We are working with serialized objects. These are objects within our Java program that are converted into byte stream, and this is a stream of bytes, and it can be transmitted to our memory from our IDE, a database, a file. We can also send it over networks and stuff like that. And I said here the cool thing about it is like we're able to store like full on objects. So let's say I was developing a game, I could store those objects. Let's say a pickaxe or something cool. Yeah, just being able to store that. But like whenever we're reading into the file or reading, like just looking at it through a text editor, we are not able to read the contents of the serialized file, because it's being serialized into bits and only things computers can read, for lack of better word. And then we move into the functionality of serialized files, and what this covers is like understanding the different packages that we import, understanding the exceptions that are thrown whenever we're working with it, and understanding the classes that are allow us to go on with the process of serialization. So as I go into it, I'm like, the main difference within our classes that we're going to implement the serializable interface from the Java IO package. And what the serializable interface, it's called a tagging interface. And what this means is like whenever we are tagging an interface, whenever we tag an interface, it's like we're giving it an identifier saying that, hey, you over here, I want you to be able to be converted into a serializable object. So the object itself, I put it over here. Let me just get this right. Scroll up, implement serializable. And what this tells us is like, I want my customer class to be able to be read into a serializable or the classes that conduct the process of serialization practically. So once we do that to our class, we just say implement serializable. We now go into the process of like um working with the object output stream object and the so with the object output stream object, like we have to create a new instance of it, right? But within the parameters of this object instance, we create another new object within it called the file output stream. And what the file output stream does is take a file name as its parameters. So within our system somewhere, we have a file name students.serializable, or in this instance, it would be customer.serializable. But anyway, we need to know that we are passing a file output stream object as the parameter to the object output stream. So it's almost like nesting objects in a sense. Although we're reading the file with a class from the IO package, we are reading a file. So we need to keep in mind that we are going to be dealing with exceptions, particularly the file not found exception and the input output exception. And yeah, that's primarily it for writing to or writing a serialized object. And then yeah, we just pass the student object. We have to construct the student object, then we pass that into the output dot file write object, output dot write object, which is a method from this variable or from this class. That would be a better way of putting it. Then whenever we are done processing whatever data, we always have to close, because any process that requires us to be able to open a file or open a class allows us to process that information will definitely require us to close that connection. So that's the three main functionalities that we go ahead with. And then here I state, as a means of testing whether the serialized input was actually successful in reading the value, we would ensure then we are able to read back from the file through the process of deserialization. So if we run this method right here, we would assume that it was successful. But in order to be able to see if our serialized object has been converted into a serialized file, we would have to read back that serialized file through the process of deserialization. So now we move into the section of reading from a serialized file. So as I said, I've already stated here, like we already covered the prerequisites. I would call them the prerequisites of understanding that we need to import the Java input output package, or the input output, yeah, the input output package, to get access to the object output stream object or class. So now the keyword within object output would be the keyword output. It's telling us that we are giving a value, that we are outputting a value. But now to read in a value, we're going to have to use input, because now we are inputting values into the objects that we're using to conduct the process of serialization in a sense. So once we do that, we're going to construct the object of object input stream, and within the object input stream we construct a new object called file input stream, because it works as a nested parameter, so on and so forth. And then we give it the name of the serialized object. And then in order to be able to read values from the serialized file, we would have to, okay, I've already stated that, sorry. And then we go into the process of constructing our object. Cool, we're still using the student object. And now once we're reading back that value, we're going to take the variable of student object, and within these brackets here we have student. And what this means is, like, this is our, not data type, but we're explicitly telling the program this is the type of object that we want to return, and this is what is known as typecasting. We're explicitly telling something that, yo, I want this specific object to be returned. If I wanted to return a string, I would put string in here. That would tell you that I explicitly want strings to be returned as the object that I'm reading back from my object input stream. this this right here, the method that is contained within here via the dot operator, is what I'm trying to get. You feel me? So yeah, I covered that in this section. You can just pause the video when you like, just go through the stuff, but like, I'm just spitballing and just letting you know this is the nitty and gritty behind how serialized files function. And whenever we are dealing with files, or yeah, I'm just going to use files in an example. I'm just going to read from here. In order to retrieve any data that has been stored within any file or data structure, etc., we would have to use the process of iteration to read the values back from their source, and also be able to assign those values to a variable. To loop through the serialized file object, we would have to declare the following within a try block. So while true, student object, this same um the same statement over here of taking the objects that are within the object input stream and passing those values into the student object and then printing out student object dot toString, and then we just return the two strings of every single record that is in the serialized file. And the main reason that we make this an infinite loop, I had consulted with ChatGPT, and it said this is a graceful way of executing serialized files, because it's like we keep on running and reading from the serialized files, but until the condition is false, and that condition might be the end of file exception. Within the end of file catch block, we just say, okay, you have reached the end of file, then we continue. But from that point, we also need to know that there are other exceptions that we're dealing with. The class not found exception, which has to do with this student class object, and the input output exception where we are trying to read a value, but like it's not allowing us to read. And that's pretty much it from me. This was a really quick session, just spitballing as I said, but it covers the not general overview, but like just the things you need to know off the top of your head. And that's it from me signing out.